Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Arsenal's dominant win over PSG. We'll discuss today's Champions League fixtures. We'll discuss Cole Palmer and whether or not he's proving that he's the best attacker in the Premier League. We'll talk about Aston Villa's first Champions League game at Villa Park as they take on Bayern Munich. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show. I'll be giving you my reaction to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. If you have a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes this show successful. And we thrive on your energy and insights, whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share. Don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. Now, if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you think, and hit that super chat button. Let's keep the show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can also go to the gsmcpodcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We will start off with Arsenal's dominant win over PSG, or so-called dominant win. Is mixed reviews of the performance that Arsenal had in this game, but what is not, up for interpretation is that they got this game in pretty comfortable fashion. 2 first half goals. Kai Havertz in the 20th minute off of a wonderful ball played in from Leandro Trossard, who puts in a ball. Kai Havertz attacks it. Donnarumma's late to getting to it, doesn't react fast enough, trying to come out, gets there late. Havertz heads it home, 1-0, and then the second goal in the 35th minute comes off a set piece. Arsenal bunching up as they do, not a corner kick but a free kick opportunity. Bukayo Saka with his left foot puts in a good ball. And in those kind of balls, what you want is, if it gets untouched, it to still be in the goal area, because it makes it difficult for the keeper. It goes through a bunch of players. Donnarumma's not able to see it late. It sees it till very late and goes straight into the net. 2-0. And yeah, once Arsenal got that goal, it was going to be smooth sailing from there. If you look at the statistics, doesn't really show Arsenal in the most shining light. 6 shots for Arsenal to 10 for PSG. 5 shots on target though for Arsenal, with only 2 on target for PSG. 35% possession for Arsenal to 65% possession for PSG. And it's one of those games, it's one of those games that, there's going to be a divide amongst the performance from Arsenal. But what you can argue is, so far they've had a really good start to the season. Defeating the likes of Tottenham, Villa away, getting that point against City despite playing the second half with 10 men, defending a lead where they eventually gave up that late goal, but still getting a point in that situation, winning against PSG as well. It's been a good start, and in those games, Arsenal have been a little bit more pessimistic. Not pessimistic, that's the wrong word. Pragmatic, and a little bit more measured in the numbers that they put forward, and how how they're controlling the game. Not really, dictating game by their own tempo. Not really dominating possession. Not creating much clear-cut opportunities, but having a solid defensive base and building off that and taking advantage in individual moments to get the goals. I think they've done a really, really good job, Arsenal have, this season, of, getting individual moments of magic, like you saw from Trossard, that goal, the cross he put in, into the pass of Kai Havertz, to lead to the goal here. Another moment, the Calafiori goal against Manchester City. relying on some individual moments of quality from the players, and also good reliance on set pieces. They scored a set piece against Man City. They scored a set piece against Tottenham. They took advantage of a set piece here today. They've done a good job of relying on individual moments of quality and set pieces, because they have not really been they have not really dominated games, and it's the way Arteta has set them up. They're conceding a little bit more possession. They're being a little bit more defensive, and they're working from back to front, which there's nothing wrong with it. I'm sure Arteta's looking at the start they had last season and how that ended up biting them down the line. Maybe he's thinking, let's just get through the early stage of the season. We don't necessarily have to play good football. We just need to get the results, and we can build something through the longevity of the season. Build a team that's really difficult to play against, that will dictate tempo, that will create a numerous amount of opportunities. They want to build themselves up. We see the way Tottenham, who's been playing expansive, amazing football. Well, we saw that from last season as well from Tottenham, and what happened? Their performances started deteriorating. The energy levels it takes to play that constantly is pretty difficult. And I think Arsenal and Mikel Arteta, he's getting more and more, experience, and he's figuring out, tricks as a manager, way to adapt. And I think he entered this season, with the philosophy, we're kind of, in some of these earlier games and some of these difficult games that we have, we'll allow the other team to be the protagonist, and we'll build off that. We'll take advantage of individual moments. We'll take advantage of set pieces, which we see, because these are set pieces. They're training these set pieces of crowding the goalkeeper, of bunching players. These are set pieces that they're actually training. You can tell that they entered the season, with a plan that they're going to be reliant on these sort of moments to create the opportunities, because they're not going to open themselves up. They're not going to be extremely expansive and open themselves up and make it more difficult for them than it has to be. They're gonna, the number one priority is to get the result. And for me, I do have to say, I think there'll be a time that Arsenal, and also on top of that, losing Martin Odegaard, your most creative player, also puts you more in a position to play like this. And also losing Mikel Merino, which, by the way, speaking of Mikel Merino, who had that shoulder injury, entering on his first day of training. He made his debut yesterday, or today technically, it is today. He made his debut today, and I'm surprised that, because, it was the shoulder injury. It was announced that he'll be out for a while, and it seemed like it came by a lot more faster than what I expected. We also hear that Mbappe, he might be involved tomorrow too. Some of these players are healing faster than I expected. And yeah, it's really good that he was able to make his debut. He's going to ease his way into it as well. But yeah, I do think eventually Arsenal will need to step it up in terms of the performances. Look, I don't know if this is able to be maintained through the duration of the season, the reliance on individual moments and set pieces. I don't think this is something you can, if you're, trying to win a title, I don't think this is a philosophy you can adapt for the rest of the season, because I don't think defensively Arsenal are strong enough to keep holding clean sheets the way that they be doing. I don't think, and they're very, very strong defensively, don't get me wrong, but you think of the teams that, you think of teams that play, not teams, but you think of the great teams that play that pragmatic style of play. They have a base solid of a legendary defense, a very, very, you look at Chelsea, Chelsea with Mourinho, you had John Terry, Azpilicueta, Cahill, you had that solidity in the back, one of the best back fours there is. You go back and you see the Mourinho Inter Milan teams that defended with the low block, with Materazzi back there. Those are defenses that are top class defenses that a mentality can defend for 90 minutes and survive. I don't see that from Gabriel and William Saliba, and then this sort of flexibility back line where you don't even play a real fullback. You're playing Julian Timber and Calafiori and Ben White as fullbacks. I don't see that. So I think Arsenal will have to step it up in terms of their performances. I think they'll need to create more opportunities going forward. But if this is the plan of Mikel Arteta to see their way through the early set of fixtures, I have no problem with that. And if it's a plan, if it's a small part of a big plan, well, they go back to playing the football that we saw them play last season. Because you remember, Arsenal, they had games last season. They'd score 5, 6 goals on almost a consistent basis, and it was almost ridiculous every time. Every new game I watched, they were scoring 5, 6 goals. They had 91 goals last season, which is an amazing output. Which Manchester City had 96 last season. It just tells you how great Manchester City is as well. But 91 goals is also a really, really good goal output. So far to start off the season, their attack does not look anywhere near as potent as it has. So that's something that they need to build their way up. But I wouldn't be, if I was an Arsenal fan, I wouldn't be too concerned. The most important thing right now, this early in the season, is to make sure you don't have that start that you had last season, which ended up costing you later on. And so far, so good for Arsenal. I do have to say, the result is always the most important thing, no matter what. And as far as PSG, and especially in a competition like the Champions League, at the end of the day, the result is all that matters. You can play defensive football throughout the duration of the Champions League and win it. There's been teams that, Jose Mourinho, he did that with Inter Milan. Thomas Tuchel, to an extent, he did that with Chelsea. Not the most outgoing, forward-thinking team that Chelsea was. Diego Simeone has reached multiple Champions League finals. Yes, he hasn't won one, but he's went on multiple Champions League final runs, adopting that philosophy. As far as PSG, they didn't create much, despite that they had a lot of the possession, especially in the second half. Nuno Mendes, he had that one opportunity, that one half chance where he struck the post from a long way out. But apart from that, PSG just lack that quality, lack that forward-thinking nature. I think Barcola had an opportunity early on. He got taken off the ball by Timber, and the attack looked so lifeless without Ousmane Dembele, who we know is out from the squad because of disciplinary issues. And they suffered from it. They didn't have that real vertical threat. Barcolo, he got in a few times, didn't really have the quality to find the final ball or to make the final, to take on the final shot. And yeah, it just seemed like Arsenal never really had to get out of the second gear. PSG, they had a lot of possession, but it was not in possession in dangerous areas. There was no real cutting edge about them whatsoever. They never seemed like they were going to get back into the game. Late on, they had a few opportunities. I believe João Neves had an opportunity on the set piece, which hit the bar, and then Lee King-in's rebound follow up from that. But apart from that, just poor from PSG. And I'm looking at that team, and I know that they've lost Mbappe, and they've had a good start to League One, which is very important for them, and they've done really well under Luis Enrique so far this season. But you're looking at the team, you have Lee King-in, who's a good player, but not the most quality there. You have, Desiree Doué, a young player, obviously with potential that we're trying to figure out more about. João Neves, who I thought played a decent game, but not much known about him. Willian Pacho, the center half, the Ecuadorian center half. This is a team that there's a lot of youth there, and there's a lot of growing pains there with this team, and they do lack that firepower, especially without Ousmane Dembele. But they do have a core with Barcola, Dembele, Zaire Emery, Vitinha, Nuno Mendes, and Donnarumma, and Hakimi. They have a core there that Fabian Ruiz, he came off the bench in this game. They have a core there to work with and to improve on as a team, as a unit. But they do lack that firepower, I do have to say. And maybe just going away to Emirates was just a little bit too much of a challenge. And, Luis Enrique, he was very honest. He was very, very honest after the game. He said PSG were no match for Arsenal, for Arsenal who are superior. He said today we were far away from the standards you need in this kind of match. Arsenal were much better in terms of pressure, intensity. They won every duel. It's impossible to play for a positive result when you don't win any of your duels on the pitch. Their defenders anticipated our attackers, and our defenders didn't anticipate their attackers. Arsenal were superior. Yeah, and I do have to say I do agree with them there. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will do a recap of today's Champions League fixtures.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we did a full reaction to Arsenal's dominant win over PSG. We move on to do a recap of today's Champions League fixtures. There was a lot of important games today. We do start off with some of the games that we won't go too in-depth with. Stuttgart drew 1-1 to Sparta Praha. PSV drew 1-1 to Sporting Lisbon. Hold on. Do we have some slight technical difficulties here? But some interesting games today. Obviously, we talked about Arsenal's game. Brest, they defeated Salzburg. Brest joined with Leverkusen, and Brest, Leverkusen, and Borussia Dortmund right now are the only teams so far that are unbeaten in this Champions League. They find themselves, those three teams right now, top of the table. Now, obviously, you have the likes of Bayern who can join them. Bayern, Villa, Liverpool, Juventus, Madrid, they can all join them tomorrow with their games. But Salzburg, Brest, they got a 4-0 win over Salzburg, so their very good start to the Champions League continues. And it was Abdullah Sima. He opened the scoring 24 minutes in, and Salzburg had some opportunities, but it was Madi Kamara that got the second halfway through the second half, and then Sima, he got the third, which wrapped it up. And then it was a really good win for Brest. In this year's edition for the Champions League, they've also got themselves on a good start so far to the League One. No, they have been having a rough League One campaign. I meant to say with 2 wins and 4 losses. So it's been really surprising how well that they've competed in this year's edition of the Champions League up to now, finding themselves 13th in League One. But in terms of Champions League, they've been really, really good. Talked about Stuttgart, 1-1 draw was Sparta Praha. We talked about Arsenal defeating PSG 2-0. Dortmund, they were able to defeat Celtic 7-1. They were leading this game, Borussia Dortmund, at halftime 5-1, and it was really incredible because Celtic came off the opening weekend of the Champions League where they won. They defeated Slovan Bratislava 5-1. They got a 5-1 victory against Slovan Bratislava at Celtic Park. We know that they're now managed by Brendan Rodgers in his second stint as Celtic manager, and with that high of what they did in that Champions League game, and now to go away, and yes, you're going away to the Signal Iduna Park, which is Signal Iduna Park, the Yellow Wall, which is never an easy stadium to play in, but to go there and to get embarrassed that they waited it to go down 5-1 at halftime. I was a little bit surprised. I thought Celtic would go in there. I know they're managed by Brendan Rodgers and they have a way of playing, especially with them being the top horse in this Scottish league. They're used to being much more talented than the opposition, and having control of the game and dictating tempo and all that. But to go into Borussia Dortmund and to be as open as they were, to try to play out the way that they did, and leave themselves vulnerable, I just thought Brendan Rodgers was a little bit optimistic in his approach. This is a Borussia Dortmund team that reached the Champions League final last season, and man, Adeyemi with the hat trick, his pace, his electrifying ability. Girassi was able to get 2 goals as well. Man, it was an embarrassing display, and it's just rough if you're a Celtic fan, because winning your opening game and winning it 5-1, it's a great start, and it's a very, very good start because the goal differential that you gain in that opening day, which is important when it's an 8-game format in this Champions League new format. Only playing 8 games in a 36-team league, goal differential is going to be a big factor at the end of the day. And to have that a great start and to just completely wipe away with a 7-1 defeat, it's very, very frustrating. PSV, they drew 1-1 with Sporting Lisbon. PSV and Sporting Lisbon drew 1-1. Manchester City, they got a 4-0 win over Slovan Bratislava. Important for them to get a result in this game after dropping points in their opening day against Inter, and they got their first win, and they did it in dominant fashion as expected. Ilkay Gundogan, he was able to create for Phil Foden to get that opening goal. Foden, there's been a little bit talk on him in his season. The performance today was really, really good, and something that can be a catalyst for him going forward. Erling Haaland, he scored a goal as well. How surprising. Erling Haaland, he just continues to do it. I think this is his 11th goal in all competitions this season. Just ridiculous numbers. Ridiculous numbers. 11 goals in 8 games, I believe. It's just ridiculous what he's done since he's been as a Manchester City player. Gundogan, he was able to get a goal himself as well. I forgot, before he created the opportunity for Phil Foden, he scored a goal as well. He scored a goal as well. And overall, his goal came with combination with Phil Foden. He did not create for Phil Foden. Phil Foden, he doubled the advantage with a really good goal himself, but it was Phil Foden that combined with Gundogan for Gundogan's first goal, and this is his first goal since joining the club. But overall, good win for Manchester City to get 4 goals as well. Really good win for them. Inter, same thing. Opening day, they had that draw against Manchester City. Now they get their first win of this year's edition of the Champions League, beating Crvena Zvezda, and they cruised past them. Kolonoglu had a really good free kick in the 11th minute, and once you get that goal that early on through a set piece, we just knew Inter was gonna run away with it. Mehdi Taremi, he created 2 opportunities for Anatrovic and Martinez, and then Taremi, he scored his opening goal, since his first goal since joining Inter this summer as well. Dominant display for Inter Milan. Barcelona, they were able to defeat the likes of Young Boys. Now, this, in my opinion, was a very important game for Barcelona. After losing your opening match to Monaco, to bounce back the way that they did with a very good win, 5-0 win. And again, Lamine Yamal playing absolutely amazing. Some of the individual performance in this game is something, as a Barcelona fan, you'd be very, very excited about. Lamine Yamal just continuing to be the player that he is, getting 2 goals from Robert Lewandowski. We know the season he had last season not being his best, but the way he started off this season has been absolutely incredible. And then Rafinha also getting on the score sheet as well. Him sort of, his, what's the word? His rise now at Barcelona, he's continued his season of being really, really good, and he's had some questionable, inconsistencies at this football club, and it's overall a good turnaround. They had their first La Liga loss this weekend, and to bounce back the way that they didn't want this to carry over, and what they should have done. They dominated a Young Boys team that they have more quality than, and Rafinha, he played an amazing game. I think he won Player of the Match as well. So good performance from Rafinha, and he's really, really been impressing me this season, I do have to say. Leverkusen 1-0 win over AC Milan. Boniface, he's the one that scored that opening goal. This is actually his first Champions League goal as well, which is a great accomplishment for him. But yeah, Leverkusen, they got the goal in the 51st minute. And I think Leverkusen, they played some really, really good football, especially in that first half. I thought they were the better team. But later on, they did get a little bit more defensive. In the last 15-20 minutes, is AC Milan that was on the attack. Now, if you're an AC Milan fan, you're wondering why you didn't see this from minute 1. Why did they why did they allow Leverkusen to be the more progressive team in the first half, and they didn't take it to Leverkusen? Why did they wait till the last 15-20 minutes or so? And that's what I would ask if I was a AC Milan fan right now. They've had a good recent run of results since that bad start to the season with that dropping points to Torino, losing to Parma. They've had good results, drawing away to Lazio, beating Venezia 4-0, beating Lecce 3-0, and getting the Milan derby win over Inter. But so far, to start off this Champions League, they had that really poor performance against Liverpool at the San Siro, and then they couldn't get the point here against Leverkusen, and now they find themselves in a difficult position going forward in the Champions League with no points after 2 games. You got Club Brugge next at the San Siro, which is not the most difficult game, yes, but then you have the San Siro to follow, where you'll go away to the San Siro to take on Real Madrid. That's gonna be a very difficult game there for AC Milan. So, I am interested to see how they respond to these first 2 games in this Champions League. But we have seen progression from them so far in this season. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss Cole Palmer.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed some of the Champions League games. Today, we move on to discuss Cole Palmer. Now, Chelsea have won yet another Premier League game. They've continued their really good start to their Premier League campaign, this time with a 4-0 win over Brighton. And all 4 goals coming in the first half from Cole Palmer. And he's enjoyed a really good start to the season. Cole Palmer, building on the amazing season he had last season of putting Chelsea on the back and leading them to 6th place last season. And now, so far this season, he's been really, really good. Specifically, that second half against Wolves, where he provided 3 assists for Noni Madueke, and then the 4 goals that he scored today. So far in this campaign, he already has 10 goal involvements in 6 games, 6 goals, 4 assists, and he's been playing some really, really good football, and he's been important because the thing with Cole Palmer is when you think about the Lamine Yamals, the Phil Fodens, the Jamal Musiala, they are, those sort of players, those young players, you can argue, they're better than Cole Palmer, and they're more technically gifted better player than Cole Palmer, just in terms of being able to dribble in tight spaces, just ball skill in general, having the skill, and all that. But especially when they were early on, Cole Palmer and his end product is just a different level. An end product is something that you generally develop a little bit later, but the end product that Cole Palmer has, in the way that he can finish from left foot, right foot, he can do wonder goals like the chip he had against Wolves. He can take free kicks like the one he took against Brighton. He's a supreme penalty taker. The end product there, his ability to get the final ball right, a pass into the path of a player, the assist that he can create because of how he can play a ball. He knows how to put the right weight on a ball, how to place a ball in the right area for a player to take a shot. He can play that ball in between the lines as well. By the way, Cole Palmer, he had the assist to take England into the final of the European Championship, and he scored the goal to equalize in that final. So we see that Cole Palmer, he's an end product machine. He's an end product machine in which that's something you can build upon. And yes, he's not as, in terms of creativity, in terms of being able to create, he has, he is very technically gifted in that nature. But in terms of being able to dribble and just his overall, ability, he's not the most technically gifted. He's not as technically gifted as Jamal Musiala, Phil Foden, Lamine Yamal and them. But the end product is amazing. It's stupendous. And that's something to build upon. And, and Chelsea were really, blessed to be able to sign a player like him for 40 million last season with the play. Because look, when you're signing these young players with potential, they have those qualities, those, the underlying technical ability and all that. But the end product is something that they're, developed down the line. Well, this dude, his end product is already amazing from the get-go. And it's something that he couldn't really show at Manchester City because he didn't get enough game time. Even in the few, early on last season when he was playing for City, he's the one that got the goal in I believe it was in the Community Shield to push that game into extra time, the equalizer to Arsenal. So, you're thinking, why did Guardiola not keep him? Why did he allow him to leave? Well, obviously Guardiola came to the conclusion that he wasn't going to play at Manchester City, and he wasn't. He wasn't at that, at that moment, he wasn't good enough to get into Manchester City's team. If that was the case, Pep Guardiola wouldn't have let him go. In fact, Cole Palmer, he just wanted to go on loan, but Manchester City were the ones that said, no, if you're going to leave, we're going to sell you. So City did have the opportunity to keep him. It's not like Cole Palmer was forcing his hand. He just wanted to get out and get some game time, because he had the belief in himself that if he got the game time, that he can prove his quality. And what he's done so far with getting the game time, he's been absolutely correct. He's been amazing. The quality is there. Last season, I believe he had, at the top of my head, I think it was 33 goal contributions in 33 matches in the Premier League. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. And now, so far this season, 10 goals and 10 goal contributions in 6 games. The end product from him is stupendous. He can score in many different ways. He has a good left foot. He has a good right foot. He can hit a free kick. He can hit penalties. He can play in between the lines. He can make runs in behind. He made a lot of runs in behind in this Brighton game, took advantage of their high line. He can do a little bit of everything. And he's a sort of player that can carry a team, because when you have that sort of end product, you can carry a team. You put a guy like Jamal Musiala or Lamine Yamal in this Chelsea team, yes, individually, you could say they're better players than Cole Palmer as a whole. They're better players as Cole Palmer, but they're not going to be able to get that Chelsea team into 7th or 8th place or 6th place the way Cole Palmer was able to do, because the end product from them is not there. They won't get enough goals and assists. They won't create enough opportunities. They won't take advantage of enough opportunities to push Chelsea up the league table the way Cole Palmer did for Chelsea. But I do think the ceiling there, when you look at these other young players that have more quality than him, the ceiling is higher with those players because they're individually, they have more technical ability, they have just overall more quality. But that doesn't mean Cole Palmer, that doesn't mean Cole Palmer is not in their level or anything. I think the end product pushes him to that level, to those sort of players. But I do think overall, those other players have a little bit more of a ceiling, because naturally, I think those are the players that later on in their careers become the greats. And Cole Palmer, I think he can get there as well. But I do think he has that a little bit lower of a ceiling. But he's still a brilliant player. And to do what he's doing, age 22, finally getting his opportunity, stupendous. To say he's the best attacker in the Premier League is a little rich for me, because This is a league that still has the likes of a De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, 100 goals in 103 Premier League games. We talk about goals and goal contributions. I mean, that's 100 goals on its own. That's a ridiculous number that Erling Haaland has in terms of goal contributions. Not just goal contributions. That's just it. Goals in general. I would like to figure out how many goal contributions he has. Let's do the math. But he is a ridiculous player. He is a ridiculous player. Cole Palmer is, and I do think, he does need to get a little bit more respect. I think last season was Chelsea not being up there in the Champions League. I think that he didn't really get the respect he deserved. But so far, the way that he started off this season, how well Chelsea are playing, and look, if Chelsea can find themselves up in that league table, in that top four, positioning, the longer they're in there, the continuity and consistency we keep seeing from Cole Palmer playing that good football, he will start getting the respect he deserves from everyone as well, and he'll be up there with the Premier League Player of the Year. I believe Phil Foden did win it last season. He'll be up there in that race for this season. He was, he should have been up there last season. I do think at the end of the day, Phil Foden was rightly deserved as the winner. Winning it because of his importance for Manchester City and especially when De Bruyne went down, for a Manchester City team that was top of the Premier League. I think that has something to do with it as well. You look at the the Ballon d'Or, what you win has a big impact on it as well. So I do think Phil Foden was deserved winner of that. But look, if Chelsea can get in top four, I think he can be very, very high up the list in terms of best attackers in the Premier League. And I think in terms of quality players as well, he's in the upper echelons. He is in the in terms of top Premier League players. He is with the De Bruynes, the Erling Haalands, the Virgil van Dijks, the Mohamed Salahs, the Trent Alexander-Arnolds. He is in that group of players, in my opinion. He deserves respect. He's a really, really good player, and he is proving that he is one of the best attackers in the Premier League. I wouldn't say the best, but definitely one of the best. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will do a preview of Aston Villa's first Champions League game at Villa Park as they take on Bayern Munich.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed Cole Palmer. We move on to discuss Aston Villa. They'll be playing their first Champions League game at Villa Park as they take on Bayern Munich. To sum up Aston Villa so far this season, pretty decent start. This is a team last season that reached pretty good start to their season so far. This is the team that reached the Champions League. that are playing in this game for a reason. They finished in the top 4 last season. So far through 6 games, they have 4 wins and they have 1 draw, 1 loss. Their 1 loss coming to Arsenal, a team we know that's battling for a Premier League. But that draw did come on this past Sunday. They dropped points to Ipswich Town, going away to Ipswich in a game that is Ipswich. They did create a few opportunities here and there, and Aston Villa, they had those 2. They went down early to throw a Liam Delap's goal, but they responded really, really well. Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins getting 2 goals, but then a little piece of quality, a combination of really good quality and some bad defending from Diego Carlos. Delap gets that goal in the 72nd minute, and it forces Villa to drop points. But overall, if you look at the duration of the season, good start for Aston Villa. I do have to say, and also, we want to take a historical after this. Aston Villa, they've never played in the Champions League, but they have been a part of the European Cup, which it's been eventually rebranded into the Champions League. And Aston Villa took on Bayern Munich in the 1982 European Cup final. This game was played in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and it was a really good Bayern side as well. And that was Aston Villa, and they won it. They won that European Cup final in '82 against Bayern Munich. So history, quick history, fun fact there. And overall, we know the quality that Aston Villa have in the team. We know what Ollie Watkins is capable of. We see the production as well from Jean Duran, who's done a lot of good work coming off the bench as well. We thought he would be leaving in the summer, but he's been a big factor off the bench, making an impact against tired legs. They're managed by Unai Emery, who gets the best out of his team, that gets the team playing individually, playing better than the sum of their parts. And we know Villa, regarding their team news, Matty Cash, he had a hamstring injury at the start of the season, and there was thought that he might be available for this game, but he's not expected to be available. So Konza, he's going to continue our right back in absence. John McGinn, who's an important part of that midfield, he's not going to be available because he's also suffering a hamstring issue. But Leon Bailey, he's been getting back into the mix, and he's been getting back into the mix now, and he could be in that 11 because they do need all the firepower that can get going up against this Bayern Munich team. And we'll see if Jean Duran, I think he will make another appearance off the bench. I think they'll, roll with the likes of Watkins, Ramsey, Rogers, Bailey in the attack. And we know the quality with Morgan Rogers, his ability to run with the ball, to use his power, pace, ability as well. One of those old school sort of, attacking midfield players, really good on the ball. I think Onana and Tielemans overall in midfield have done really well as well. So we'll see with Aston Villa. As far as Bayern Munich, they've had a ridiculously good start to the season. They've won every single game so far, besides the draw against Leverkusen. 4 wins, 1, and that draw against Leverkusen, they dominated that game, and they really should have won. But apart from that, they've put up 5 goals past Werder Bremen, 9 goals past Dinamo Zagreb, 6 goals past Holstein Kiel. They're playing some really, really good football. This Bayern Munich team is under Vincent Kompany now. They're getting numbers forward. They're playing open, expensive football. They're splitting out their center halves. They're allowing their fullbacks to push up high. They're putting on a lot of attackers on the pitch. They're getting Coman, Musiala, Olise, Harry Kane, all on. They're heavily reliant on the midfield pivot of Kimmich and Pavlovic, who's been very important in there. And but the thing with Bayern Munich is Harry Kane, he is a concern. He limped off with an ankle problem against Leverkusen this past weekend. But he is expected to be ready and starting at Villa Park on Wednesday. So that's very, very important. We know the goal scorer that Harry Kane can be, how clinical he is, how important he is. Also, the fact that he can drop down and be a creative player as well, with players running in behind. We know the quality from Bayern Munich. They're a really, really good player. If I'm Aston Villa in this game, you want to take advantage of that back line. I think if you can play past the initial press of Bayern Munich, you do have defenders that you can go at Upamecano and Kim Min-jae. You see the weakness exploited. I think it's very, very important for Ollie Watkins and John Duran when he's coming off the bench to make those runs in behind them, to really go at those center halves, because they're a mistake waiting to happen. Yes, you're playing against Bayern Munich and they're a very, very difficult team, and if you play too open, they will take advantage. But don't be afraid to go after them. Don't be afraid to press high. Force those center halves to play and see what, and try to fill them out. See if they're comfortable playing away at Villa Park in this Champions League atmosphere. Take advantages of the weakness there, because I don't think that's an issue that Bayern Munich have solved. I think that Vincent Kompany has solved. I think that's an issue that Bayern Munich have been able to cover with how dominant that they've been in terms of their attacking display, in terms of how they've been able to control the game. But there is a weakness in that Bayern Munich team. Defensively, it is a weakness. From midfield to attack, brilliant players, quality, goal scorers, pace, technical ability, good passing range, everything that you want in a team. They have right qualities in terms of the midfield and the attack. But the center halves are a problem, especially with how high the fullbacks want to push up. There'll be space because the center backs will be split out wide and you can go at them. So if I'm an Aston Villa team, number one, you have to have a solid defensive base, because there is a quality with Bayern Munich. But once you are able to regain possession, you need to be able to play out of the initial press that Bayern Munich will have. They will press, they will have that initial press. If you can play behind that, there is some real space that they can attack, and there's some weaknesses that they can exploit. That's my, that would be Unai Emery, and Unai Emery is a brilliant manager, and I'm sure this is something that he will be, that he'll be discussing with his team. But there is something you can exploit with this Bayern Munich team. There really is, and I'm very excited for this game. I'm really excited to see how the Villa Park atmosphere will be in the Champions League, how high it is. You go back to last season, we saw Newcastle playing their first Champions League game at St. James's Park in however many years. And the atmosphere, the electric atmosphere at St. James's Park, I'm not expecting that electricity, because I don't know if Villa Park can get as high as St. James's Park is, but I definitely think that can be a real high advantage for Unai Emery and this team to really take advantage of. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this game tomorrow, and I think this is the game actually that I'm most looking forward to in terms of all the Champions League games tomorrow. Speaking of all the rest of the Champions League games, I will summarize the rest of the games tomorrow. You have Shakhtar Donetsk taking on Atalanta, Girona taking on Feyenoord. Those are the early time slot windows. And then you have Benfica taking on Atletico Madrid, Liverpool taking on Bologna, Leipzig taking on Juventus, Lille taking on Real Madrid, Club Brugge taking on Sturm Graz, and then Dinamo Zagreb taking on Monaco. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we will react to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. Before the break, we discussed Aston Villa's first Champions League game at Villa Park as they take on Bayern Munich. We move on to react to some of the top soccer headlines. And we do have to start off with something is surprising and honestly something I don't think I've ever seen before. Somehow, someone has actually won a red card appeal in the Premier League, and it was Manchester United. With the Bruno Fernandes red card decision, they won their appeal against Bruno Fernandes' red card during that 3-0 loss to Tottenham. We know, Bruno Fernandes, United captain. He went high and he tripped Madison. He went a little bit high and he caught him. You can tell when you look at this, especially in slow motion, that he slips making that play. But, I discussed this yesterday as well. When he does, when that initial slip happens, he does elevate his foot so he can make contact with Madison to prevent him from continuing to dribble with the ball. I do think he was intentionally trying to trip him. And yes, it was a dirty play in there, but I don't think it was a malicious and dangerous play because he doesn't go through James Madison. He puts his foot in the way of James Madison's pass so he can trip over it. He doesn't really go through James Madison. There's no stud to foot contact, so I don't think it's really dangerous play. I just think it's pretty dirty and you're not going for the ball. And initially if you give that a yellow card, I could understand, but the fact that it's high as well, it makes it it's a worse look for Bruno Fernandes. But it was called a red card on the field, and when it's a red card on the field, VAR doesn't intervene. That's the end of the day. For me, I'm just really surprised. There's been very, very clear mistaken red cards in the Premier League so far that I've seen that has not been rescinded. You hardly ever see that, and the fact that this is the one that gets rescinded, it doesn't make no sense to me. There's no difference between this is not a clearly a mistake. There's been in the past that there's been clear mistaken given red cards that has not been rescinded, and the fact that this is the one that gets rescinded, it's weird for me. I do have to say I'm very surprised by the decision. But at the end of the day, overall, these 3-game bans for red cards, I think it's a little harsh. 3 games is a lot of Premier League games to miss. It's a lot of action. But Bruno Fernandes, he will be available in the next 3 games, and that's important for United, a United team that's reeling. They go away to Villa next week or this weekend, which is a very difficult game. They also have Brentford and West Ham coming up. So, I think it's very important for Erik ten Hag in this United team. But it's not like Bruno Fernandes has had a good season. He's been pretty poor so far to this season. But he is still the captain, and I guess there's some added value in having your captain available. But Borussia Dortmund fans, they protested UEFA Mafia amid these Champions League changes. They were very, very, they had the big banner, UEFA Mafia, almost a stadium-sized banner. It was really crazy to me how amazingly organized the banner was, how it's being allowed to be there. But there was a huge tifo blasting European football governing body UEFA banner displayed during their 7-1 win over Celtic, and they displayed the words as UEFA Mafia. And behind one of the goals, there was a banner that said, "You don't care about the sport, all you care about is money." It's really a loud statement there, and obviously all UEFA cares about is money. We've been known that That's all the UEFA cares about. But also at the same time, that's the only thing that a lot of these owners of these clubs care about. That almost forced the Champions League hand into making these changes with the announcement of the Super League. So you got to blame the owners as well. And yeah, it's a little bit different in Bundesliga with the 50+1 rule, and they were, or 49+1 rule, and those teams were not really involved in the whole making of the Super League. In fact, Dortmund, Bayern Munich, one of the few clubs that rejected that idea. But at the same time, it's a very, very clear statement, and I think at the end of the day, that's what football is about. You're allowed to have an opinion. De Jong, he's able to return to action. To action after that ankle injury that actually kept him out of the summer's European Championship, and now he's finally made his return to Barcelona. He replaced Lamine Yamal in the 75th minute. And he's going to be an important part of this team. Frankie de Jong is going to be, with the lack of players that they have in the holding midfield position, he's going to probably have to play that going down the stretch. Not because that's where his best position is, but because he's going to be needed there. De Jong, when he was speaking about returning to action after the game, he said, "I am really happy with the win and personally to be back playing. The fans gave me a good reception, and I'm grateful for that because you never know how you'll be received. I didn't expect it. I'm happy with the way I was welcomed back. The team is in good form and has been since the start of the season. We are playing well. We have to keep going now, keep improving, and see where it takes us." When asked about where he's going to fit into the team, he said, "It depends on the coach. He picks the team and who plays, and I'm going to give everything I can. It's always a tough time when you're injured. It's been a hard process, and there have been some low moments during it." But yes, that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. So thank you once again and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to